Greetings, Butterfly Tribe. Welcome back to The Way You See Me Heart Healing Ministry. Today we're going to resume with healing from childhood trauma. Yesterday we completed ages 10 through 13, or grades 6 through 8. We're going to resume today with the summer leading up to my 9th grade year of high school. Still age 13, right before turning 14 years old. I'm going to open up with scripture. It is coming from Romans, the 5th chapter. We're going to start at verse 3. And not only this, but we also exalt in pressures, knowing that pressure works endurance, and endurance, approvedness, and approvedness, expectation. And expectation does not disappoint, because the love of the Most High has been poured out in our hearts by the set-apart Spirit, which was given to us. For when we were still weak, Messiah in due time died for the wicked. May Yahuwah add a blessing to the readers, hearers, and doers of his set-apart word. I mentioned before that I was raised in the home with my mother and her husband, my stepfather, from the age of 3 until this particular time, age 13. I witnessed a lot of different things in childhood that most parents probably don't think their children are aware of, or that they're covering up really well, when in fact they're not. I can remember the arguments, the fights. I also can remember the car rides to different parts of town where they thought they were discreetly covering up their actions, but we're going to buy their pick-me-ups, and I'll leave it like that. My mother grew up in the 70s. I'm a 70s baby, but she grew up in the 70s, so we know what the 70s were known for. So nothing, they drank beer, and they smoked marijuana. Not in our presence, but we knew what was going on. Well, I knew what was going on. But this is when the family falls apart. It was the summer after my 8th grade year, and they went through some marital issues that I know the details about, but it's not my story to tell. But my stepfather decided that he was leaving. So our family split up. I want to say that my mother and my siblings and I stayed in the home where I had grew up at a little while, but then we lost that home because my mom at the same time lost her job. So we ended up losing the home, and we began staying with relatives, her brothers. We ended up staying with one uncle and then another uncle, her brothers, because she wasn't working. And how my mother coped with her marriage falling apart and losing her job was she turned to her fix. And as I said before, I knew that my parents smoked marijuana. And my mother went to buy marijuana from someone in the town that I grew up in. And he laced it with crack cocaine. I did not know this. I knew of my mother's addiction, but I didn't know how it started until I was into my adult years of life. And she explained to me that she did not go looking for crack. She didn't ask for the crack. She went to buy weed, and it was laced with crack cocaine. And I watched my mother go from the strong black woman that she was, and I saw it disintegrate right before my eyes. Everything that I knew about life as I knew it changed. We lived at my uncle's house for quite a while. He had gotten remarried and bought a house with his new wife, and he did not want to get rid of his house, so he allowed my mother to stay in the house with us to give us a place to stay. And we lived in that house. I watched my mother go from being someone who worked and provided for us to turn into the system for assistance. I can remember just feeling lost, just trying to find my way. I felt as though when I really, really needed her guidance, she was gone. I was going in, preparing to go into my high school years, and being, I had reached the age of becoming a young woman. And don't get me wrong, my mother showed me that part. My mother taught me about hygiene and keeping myself clean, and lessons that I've never forgotten. But it was so many lessons that I never got. During that summer, and watching all of this with, my dad, my stepdad was a true dad. He really did treat me as his own. And what he provided for our family was what a man provides for his family. He was the covering. He was the protector. He kept us safe. And when he left, that left too. And it was some things that I know for certain, wouldn't have ever allowed. And maybe my mother, outside of the lifestyle that now became her norm, I don't think she would have allowed it either. But that summer, while hanging out with a church friend, a good friend of mine, we had gone to the movies. And after the movies, we went to Taco Bell, to hang out. And while in Taco Bell, there was a group of, I think, 3 or 4 guys. And I want to say it was just it was just the 2 of us, but they were together. And I met a guy that lived about 20 minutes from where I was living. And we began chit-chatting on the telephone. And by the time midsummer came, we were calling each other boyfriend and girlfriend. I was 13. He was 16. And this is what I mean when I say there are some things that my dad would have never allowed, my stepdad wouldn't have allowed, and probably my mother either. Like, I wouldn't have been able to talk to a boy that age, that much, 3 years older than I was. I was going into my freshman year of high school, and he was going into his senior year of high school, I was still walking around town or roller skating, riding a bike, and he owned a car. My stepdad would have never gone for that. And my mother, under the right circumstances, the woman that was so protective of where we stayed and who we were around, and a lot of things did slip through the cracks, as you heard in my previous testimonies of things that I've experienced. But she wasn't aware of that. These were things that would take place when I was left alone with my siblings or left alone with other family members, unattended. But my mother was protective of me. And so I met this guy and started dating this guy, and actually it was not done in secret. By the end of the summer, he came to the city where I lived and, the town, and he was introduced to my mother. So she knew his age and that we were dating. And at the time, of course, shortly after high school started, I turned 14, 2 to 3 months into my freshman year of high school. And then she asked the question of if we were sexually active, which we were not. And that was that. So this enters in, and what went along with the family breaking up is a sense of loss, and like I told you, just trying to feel my way and trying to fill the voids and ease the pain that I was going through, because I lost that protection and provision of my stepdad. We lost our home, so we were living other places. And in a way, I lost my mother. Because she wasn't the same. She wasn't the same mom that I knew. And so this is where the pressures of my life began. And I had to step up again, because I had to become what my siblings needed. I had to protect them. And I had to I just had to. I had to become what I needed to become in that moment. Because I was 13. My younger brother was 11. And my baby sister was 9. And I still felt responsible for them. So I'm going to end this part. And I'll pick up at age 14 in the next recording. Stay tuned for Healing Childhood Trauma. See you next recording. Have a blessed day.